Chairman Collins, Ranking Member Casey, members of the committee, thank you for having me here. It's an honor to speak about this issue. As you said, Senator Collins, I was an Air Force veteran. I got out in 2013 and relocated to Maine in 2014. Upon arriving there, I wanted to continue my dedication to service, and I was looking for opportunities to volunteer while I applied to graduate schools. I found Vet2Vet Maine, simple internet search, and I liked what they had to say. They offered companionship for isolated veterans. Senator Collins indicated that there's a significant number of veterans in the state. What I would also like to emphasize in the state of Maine is that there's a significant number of elderly men and women in the state, and veterans are no exception. What Vet2Vet Maine seeks to address is the isolation of those veterans first and foremost, but also connect them with benefits that they likely qualify for and haven't been receiving. So when Vet2Vet contacted me, I went in and they gave me a background check and got me trained up. And then it connected me with a veteran who's in his 80s. He was a Korean War Air Force veteran. He was a maintainer on jet aircraft. Over the course of several weeks, I was in his house once a week, meeting with him and his wife, having conversation, coffee, taking him out to lunch, getting him out of the house. It's clear to me that they were isolated. They lived in Windham, Maine, which is not a metropolitan area. But I was able to have a good connection with them, and I became aware that he had never, in 60 years of being out of the military, been connected with the VA in any way. I also became aware that his wife had contacted the Vet2Vet Maine program as a way to get respite care potentially, and maybe in-home care, as he was in declining health. He had significant health problems, including physical issues, chronic pain, and diabetes. At the time that I saw him, they were spending hundreds of dollars on diabetes medication alone and living off of a very small pension from a telecommunications, his work in telecommunications and his Social Security benefits. So that became my first order of business, is to try and get him connected with the VA and get him the care, medical care, potentially pharmaceutical care, that he not only qualified for and deserved, but really, really needed. In the process, I was able to help them fill out the paperwork. I contacted the Vet2Vet Maine program to get him a case manager, make them aware of some of his needs in the home, and see if there were other organizations that could help them out. In that process, she continued, as paperwork was slow to process, as it always is. She continued to reach out. She saw an ad in the newspaper. I think it came with the coupons for a program that was advertising free in-home care and respite care for veterans. Free sounds really good to a person on a fixed income, so she contacted this organization. She had the foresight to also reach out to me to sit in on this conversation. I accepted. The nature of this was that two gentlemen showed up to the house offering free respite or in-home care to them. Their sales pitch was that what they were going to do is they were going to assist them in obtaining a pension from the VA, and that would also allow them access to the aid and attendance program, as you previously mentioned. What they wanted, and what struck me, sort of the first red flag in this situation, was that how they were going to finance this. And they wanted my veteran to open up a separate checking account that they had draft rights on, so they can auto draft. So VA pays you direct deposit, and they were going to auto deduct whatever pension and benefit that they got. That's not out and out illegal or anything, but that's, there was no conversation as to why that existed instead of regular payment methods. I started to ask questions. They then continued and said how they were going to get him to qualify the means test, which all these pension and benefits are all means tested, and he was slightly over. And at which point he started to describe a method that they could report medical bills to the VA to lower their total income and pass the means test. That's fine, except that even with medical bills, even with the hundreds of dollars in insulin, they weren't going to pass it. So he suggested that they employ, in air quotes, their daughter as a medical aide, which she was not qualified, trained, or certified in, to do things like filling their prescriptions over the phone or going and picking up prescriptions and this sort. They could pay her, which they weren't going to, a stipend, and then put that into their accounting. So the fuzzy math is where I really threw down that this wasn't a good idea. Luckily, they had trusted me. I said, you really shouldn't do this. And they were able to avoid the scam. They ended up going through the regular process. They got benefits. They got in-home care and respite care through, I believe, the VA and some other organizations. Ultimately, he was moved to hospice and he passed. But at least in the later stages of his life, he had that care, and it didn't put significant financial strain on the veteran. Thank you.
Thank you so much for intervening and caring enough to do so. I just can't imagine what the final years of life would have been for this couple if they hadn't followed your advice. I'm sure that they would have lost everything that they were getting that was in that separate checking account.